The sound of footsteps, where no footsteps should exist, stopped Evelyn Ashford's heart cold. She stood motionless in the jasmine garden, rainwater still dripping from leaves around her, the air thick with petrichor and the sweet, almost narcotic scent of flowers after the storm. This section of the estate was always silent. Always. The 12-foot stone walls her father built ensured that. Security swept this area every morning at 9. The gardeners came Tuesdays and Fridays only, supervised and background checked within an inch of their lives. It was Saturday. 4 in the afternoon. No one should be here. The footsteps, light, quick, belonging to someone young, moved closer through the wet grass. Not the heavy, measured tread of security. Not the cautious, practiced quiet of the household staff who'd been trained never to startle her. These footsteps didn't know she was there. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat, her fingers tightening around the marble edge of the fountain where she'd been sitting. 18 years of living in controlled, predictable silence made this moment feel like standing at the edge of a cliff. Her world didn't have surprises. Her father made sure of that. So, who was in her garden? Well, that's just great, a male voice muttered, young and frustrated, maybe 20 feet away. Absolutely perfect. Evelyn's mouth went dry. The voice didn't belong to anyone she knew, and she knew every voice in her carefully curated existence. This one was rough around the edges, slightly out of breath, with an accent that spoke of the city's South End, the parts her father's car never drove through. She should call out. Alert security. Her phone was in her pocket, programmed with emergency contacts she could activate with 3 taps. Instead, she stayed frozen listening. Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm so glad you're here for this story. It's one that's going to take us on a journey about seeing what truly matters in life. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing where this community stretches across the globe. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are we even doing? Hit that subscribe button because trust me, you're going to want to see how this unfolds. This story has twists that'll leave you breathless. Now, back to Evelyn, standing in her garden, listening to a stranger who shouldn't exist in her world. Damn wall wasn't supposed to be broken. The voice continued, closer now. She heard the rustle of fabric against wet foliage. Grandmother's going to kill me if these herbs are ruined. Herbs? The word felt foreign in the context of her estate, where everything was ornamental, expensive, chosen by designers who build by the hour. Evelyn knew she should be afraid. Her father spent millions ensuring she was safe, protected, isolated from a world he insisted was too dangerous, too chaotic, too much for his fragile daughter. Richard Ashford didn't build walls just around the property. He built them around her entire life. But fear wasn't what made her heart race. It was curiosity, that forbidden, intoxicating thing she'd learned to suppress. Hello. The word escaped her lips before she could stop it. The footsteps halted abruptly. Silence stretched between them, broken only by water dripping and the distant rumble of thunder. Oh, hell, the voice said, apologetic and startled. Listen, I'm not here to cause trouble. I didn't know anyone actually lived here. The wall was broken from the storm, and I thought this was just overgrown property. I was cutting through to save time, and you're trespassing. Evelyn's voice came out steadier than she felt. This is the Ashford estate. Another pause. She heard him take a step back. Ashford? As in Richard Ashford? The tech guy. The voice shifted, became more careful. Look, I'll leave right now. I'm sorry. I really didn't know. Wait. The word surprised her again. Why was she stopping him? Why wasn't she calling security? How did you get through the wall? The storm last night took down a section on the east side. About a 10-foot gap. Your security guys probably haven't found it yet. It's pretty overgrown back there. East side. The section she'd asked her father to rewild 3 years ago, to let grow into a natural barrier. He'd agreed because it made her happy and because wild meant harder to breach. Except now it was breached. And somehow, that felt less like a security failure and more like fate cracking open a door. You can see me, Evelyn said, not a question. Yeah? You're sitting by the fountain. White dress. You look like you're waiting for someone. She absorbed this, the casual way he described her, like she was just a person, not the Ashford daughter, not the blind billionaire heiress, not the tragic figure the few visitors to the estate treated with careful, pitying voices. I wasn't waiting for anyone, she said. I never wait for anyone. No one comes here. That sounds lonely. The simple, honest observation hit her harder than it should have. No one in her life named things plainly. Everything was cushioned, softened, wrapped in protective layers of careful language. Who are you? She asked. I'm Noli. The voice moved slightly, and she tracked it, her head turning with the precision of someone who navigated by sound. Just a guy who made a wrong turn. I'll go. You didn't answer the question. A soft laugh, surprised and genuine. You're kind of direct, aren't you? I don't have time for anything else. Evelyn stood up, her hand trailing along the fountain's edge until she found her bearings. My whole life is indirect. People talk around me, about me, never to me. So yes, I'm direct. Your name? Kay. A hesitation. Kay Thornton. Kay. She tested the name, short and sharp and nothing like the Richards and Fredericks and Worthingtons that populated her father's world. What herbs? What? You mentioned herbs. For your grandmother. Oh. The voice, Kai, sounded thrown by the question. Yeah. She has a flower stand in the South Market. Makes remedies on the side. I was bringing her fresh lemongrass and mint from a supplier. She has customers waiting. Evelyn knew about South Market only from overheard conversations, snippets from staff members quickly silenced when they remembered she was in the room. It was everything her world wasn't. Crowded, chaotic, alive. Describe it to me, she said. Describe what? The market. What it's like. Silence again, but different this time. Considering. Why? Kai asked carefully. Because I've never been anywhere, Evelyn said, and the admission felt like stepping off that cliff she'd been standing on since the moment she heard his footsteps. Because I'm blind, and my father thinks that means I'm breakable, and I've spent 18 years in this garden listening to silence. So describe it to me. Please. The word hung in the air between them. Please, something she rarely needed to say because everything was anticipated, provided, controlled. Okay, Kai said softly, and she heard him move closer, settling onto the fountain's edge a few feet away from her. Okay, the market. He began to speak, and Evelyn listened as a stranger painted a world she'd never seen with words that made her heart race faster than fear ever could. She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this impossible, unplanned meeting, was about to change absolutely everything. What do you think Kai sees in Evelyn that no one else does? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Kai talked for 47 minutes. Evelyn knew because the grandfather clock in the East Wing chimed 5, its sound carrying across the grounds like it did every hour, a reminder that her life was measured, scheduled, controlled down to the minute. But for 47 minutes, she forgot about the clock. Kai described the market like he was translating color into sound, chaos into poetry. The way vendors called out their prices in sing-song rhythms that competed and harmonized. The smell of grilling meat mixing with jasmine garlands and diesel fumes. The press of bodies, hundreds of strangers touching, bumping, existing together in a way that would send her father into a panic attack. "There's this lady who sells mangoes," Kai said, his voice animated in a way that made Evelyn smile, without meaning to. "She's been there 30 years, same corner. She can tell how ripe they are just by the sound they make when she taps them. 3 different taps, one for perfect today, one for perfect tomorrow, one for perfect next week. She navigates by sound too," Evelyn said quietly. "Like me."
Yeah.
Kai's voice softened. "I guess she does. Never thought about it like that." Evelyn tilted her head toward him, tracking the warmth in his words. "Most people don't think about it at all. They just assume blind means helpless." "That's stupid." The bluntness startled a laugh out of her, a real laugh, not the polite sound she'd been taught for formal dinners with her father's associates. "My father has 17 specialists who would disagree with you. Very expensively." 17? Kai let out a low whistle. "For what?" "Everything. Mobility training I don't need, because I've memorized every inch of this estate. Therapists to help me cope with my disability. Nutritionists because apparently blind people require special diets." The bitterness crept into her voice before she could stop it. "Tutors who speak to me like I'm 5 instead of 18. My father has spent my entire life trying to fix something that can't be fixed." "Maybe he's not trying to fix you," Kai offered carefully. "Maybe he's just scared." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Scared people build walls to protect themselves. My father built them to imprison me." Before Kai could respond, she heard it, the sharp, measured footsteps of Thomas, her father's head of security. He was still distant, near the main house, but moving in a pattern she recognized. Evening sweep. He'd reached this section in minutes. "You need to go," Evelyn said abruptly, standing. "Security does rounds at 5:15. Kai stood too. She heard the rustle of his movement. "Will you get in trouble?" "For talking to me." Would she? Richard Ashford's disappointment was a cold, heavy thing, worse than his anger. He'd increase security, restrict her garden time, add more supervision to her already suffocating schedule. He'd do it all with that pained expression that said, "I'm doing this because I love you, because I can't lose you too." Her mother had died giving birth to her. Evelyn had learned young that she wasn't just Richard Ashford's daughter. She was his last piece of her mother, his greatest responsibility, his proof that he could protect what mattered. Even if that protection felt like drowning. "Probably," she admitted, "but I won't tell them about you." "Why not?" "Because you're the first real thing that's happened to me in 18 years, she thought. "Because you talk to me like I'm a person instead of a problem to solve." "Because I want you to come back," she said instead, her heart hammering. "Tomorrow. Same time. If you want." Silence stretched between them, and Evelyn felt suddenly, acutely vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with her blindness and everything to do with the fact that she'd just asked a stranger, a boy from a world she'd never touched, to risk trespassing again just to talk to her. "I want," Kai said simply. "But Evelyn, that's your name, right?" "I heard you say Ashford." "Yes." "If your father finds out, he won't. Not if we're careful." She stepped closer, following his voice. Please, Kai. You described 47 minutes of the world to me. Do you know how long 47 minutes is when every day is exactly the same? When you know what you're going to do, who you're going to see, what you're going to hear before it happens. Sound like hell, Kai said quietly. It is. The admission came out raw. I have everything anyone could want. Money, comfort, safety. And I would trade all of it for one day in your market. One day of not knowing what comes next. Thomas's footsteps grew closer. Maybe 3 minutes now. East wall, Kai said quickly. Where I came through. There's a gap behind the wild roses. For o'clock tomorrow, I'll bring something. Bring what?
À surprise.
She could hear the smile in his voice. You said you wanted something you can't predict, right? Despite everything, the risk, the fear of her father's reaction, the absolute insanity of meeting a stranger secretly, Evelyn smiled. Okay. Kai's footsteps moved away, quick and light through the grass. Tomorrow, Evelyn Ashford. Tomorrow, Kai Thornton. She listened to him go, tracking his movement until it faded beyond the garden walls, back into the world she wasn't allowed to touch. Thomas found her 2 minutes later, standing alone by the jasmine fountain, her face turned toward the east wall. Miss Evelyn, he said in his carefully neutral tone, your father is asking for you. Dinner is in 30 minutes. Of course it is, she murmured. It's always at 5:45. She let Thomas guide her back toward the house, something she hated, something she didn't need, something she allowed because fighting it meant confrontation, and confrontation meant her father's wounded expression and tighter restrictions. But as she walked, she memorized everything. The exact path to the east wall, the distance from the jasmine fountain, the timing of Thomas's rounds. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, she would be there. For the first time in her life, Evelyn Ashford had a secret. And secrets, she was learning, felt like freedom. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, do so now. And if you are yet to like this video, click the like button now. Kai came back with soil under his fingernails and a mango in his pocket. Evelyn heard him before he announced himself. She'd been sitting at the fountain since 3:30, her heart racing every time the wind moved through the leaves. When his footsteps finally came through the gap in the east wall, relief and something else, something warmer, flooded through her. You came, she said. Said I would. His footsteps approached, stopping a few feet away. You thought I wouldn't? I thought maybe you'd realize how insane this is. Sneaking onto Richard Ashford's property to talk to his daughter. Oh, it's completely insane, Kai agreed cheerfully. I barely slept. Kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Pretty sure your dad could have me arrested just for breathing near this place. Then why are you here? Because you asked me to be. The simplicity of it made Evelyn's chest tighten. In her world, people came because they were paid, because they were obligated, because her father commanded it, not because she asked. I brought you something, Kai said. The surprise I mentioned. Can I come closer? Yes. His footsteps moved until she could feel his presence beside her, the warmth of another person in her carefully controlled space. He smelled like sunshine and something green, fresh leaves, maybe, or cut grass. Hold out your hands. Evelyn extended both palms, and something smooth and heavy settled into them, oval-shaped, slightly yielding under her fingers. It's a mango, Kai said. From the lady I told you about. I explained I needed the perfect one for today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. She picked this one herself. Evelyn ran her fingers over the skin, feeling the subtle texture, the give that suggested ripeness. I've had mango before. The chef prepares it sometimes. I'm betting you've never had it like this, though. Here, there's a technique. Kai's hand covered hers, warm and calloused in a way that spoke of actual work, real life. Her breath caught. No one touched her except medical staff and her father's careful, anxious hugs. But Kai's touch was easy, unself-conscious, like she wasn't made of glass. He guided her hands, showing her how to feel for the perfect spot. You squeeze just a little, roll it, break up the flesh inside without breaking the skin. My grandmother taught me. Says it's how they ate them when she was young, before everyone got fancy with knives. Evelyn followed his guidance, feeling the fruit soften under her palms. His hand stayed over hers, and she was acutely aware of every point of contact, his fingers, slightly rough, against her skin that had never known real sun. The warmth of him, the absolute foreignness of casual touch. Now, Kai said softly, and she realized his voice had changed, become lower, more aware. You bite off the stem end, just a little, and squeeze. It's messy. Definitely not billionaire appropriate. Good, Evelyn said, surprised by her own boldness. I'm tired of appropriate. She felt him go still beside her, his hand still covering hers on the mango. The air between them shifted into something electric, charged with possibility. Evelyn. Miss Evelyn. A woman's voice, sharp with panic, cut through the garden. Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper. Miss Evelyn, where are you? Kai jerked back immediately. I need to go. No, wait. But he was already moving, his footsteps quick toward the east wall. 4 o'clock tomorrow, he whispered, and then he was gone, disappearing through the gap just as Mrs. Chen's footsteps hurried closer. Evelyn stood quickly, gripping the mango, her mind racing. Mrs. Chen never came to the garden during free time. Something was wrong. I'm here, she called out, forcing calm into her voice. Mrs. Chun reached her, slightly out of breath. Your father wants to see you in his study immediately. She paused, her voice dropping. There's been a security concern. Evelyn's blood went cold. What kind of concern? I'm not at liberty to say. But he needs to speak with you now. The walk back to the house felt endless. Evelyn's mind spun through possibilities. Had someone seen Kai? Had cameras caught something? Her father's security system was military grade. He'd bragged about it to investors, how nothing got past his protection of what mattered most. She clutched the mango in her pocket, hidden in the folds of her dress. Richard Ashford's study smelled like leather and expensive scotch and the cologne he'd worn since before Evelyn was born. She heard him stand as she entered, his chair creaking.
Evelyn.
Sit down. She found the chair across from his desk without help. She'd memorized this room years ago, during countless lectures about her safety, her future, her limitations. What's this about, Father? The security team found a breach in the east wall this morning, Richard said, his voice controlled but tight. Storm damage. They've been reviewing camera footage from the past 48 hours. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. She kept her face carefully neutral, a skill she'd perfected over 18 years of hiding what she felt. Is that a problem? It could have been. If someone had gotten through. If someone had found you alone, vulnerable. His voice softened into that pained tone she knew too well. Evelyn, you have to understand. You're not like other people. You can't defend yourself properly. The world outside these walls is dangerous, I know. She'd heard this speech 1,000 times. But nothing happened.
Fine.
This time. Richard moved around the desk, his hand settling on her shoulder. I'm doubling security. And I think we should limit your garden time for a while, just until… No. The word came out harder than she'd intended. Her father went silent. No, he repeated slowly. The garden is all I have, Evelyn said, her hands clenched in her lap, feeling the mango in her pocket like a secret heartbeat. You can fix the wall, add cameras, whatever makes you feel better. But you're not taking the garden from me. Evelyn, I'm 18 years old, and I've never been anywhere. I've never done anything you didn't approve first. The garden is mine. That doesn't change. She stood, her whole body trembling with an anger she'd suppressed for years. And underneath the anger, something fiercer. The determination to protect the one thing, the one person, who'd shown her a glimpse of something beyond these walls. We'll discuss this later, Richard said finally, his voice strained. When you've calmed down. Evelyn walked out without responding, her fingers tight around the mango in her pocket. She'd made her choice. Whatever it cost, she wasn't giving up her 4 o'clocks. She wasn't giving up Kai. Wait a bit. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. If you have liked this channel, do so now.
Take a step to do so.
Thank you. Let's continue. For 6 days, Kai came at 4 o'clock, and for 6 days, Evelyn met him by the jasmine fountain. The increased security made it harder. Her father had installed motion sensors along the east wall, added 2 more guards to the rotation, and implemented random check-ins from staff. But Evelyn had lived in this cage her entire life. She knew its rhythms better than anyone. She knew Thomas took exactly 4 minutes to walk from the north gate to the rose garden. She knew the new sensors had a blind spot where the wild roses grew thickest, where Kai slipped through. She knew Mrs. Chen always brought tea at 3:30, which meant 30 minutes of guaranteed privacy after Evelyn sent her away. For the first time, being underestimated became an advantage. You're getting good at this, Kai said on the 6th day, settling beside her on the fountain's edge. The sneaking around. I'm getting good at a lot of things. Evelyn turned toward his voice, smiling. I made it from my room to here without touching a single wall today. That's different from normal? I usually trail my hand along surfaces. For orientation. But you made me realize I don't need to. I can count steps, use sound, feel changes in air pressure when I pass doorways. She paused. I've been capable of this for years. I just never tried because everyone assumed I couldn't. Everyone except you now. Everyone except me now, she agreed. Kai had brought something new each day. The mango first, then a handful of mint leaves from his grandmother's stand that Evelyn had crushed between her fingers, releasing sharp freshness, nothing like the decorative herbs in the estate gardens. Yesterday, a smooth river stone he'd found, still cool from the water. Small things that cost nothing but meant everything because they came from his world, the one beyond her walls. Today, he'd brought music. It's not fancy, he warned, pulling out what sounded like a phone with a cracked screen, based on the way his fingers caught on it. But there's this band that plays in the market sometimes. Street musicians. They're incredible. He pressed play, and sound poured out, guitars and drums and a voice that was raw and imperfect and so alive it made Evelyn's chest ache. Nothing like the classical music her tutors played, all precise and proper and soulless. What is this? She breathed. Freedom, Kai said simply. That's what my grandmother calls it. Music that doesn't follow anyone's rules. Evelyn listened, her whole body swaying slightly with the rhythm. When Kai's hand found hers on the fountain's edge, she didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they'd done this 1,000 times instead of never. Evelyn, Kai said quietly, and something in his voice made her breath catch. Can I ask you something? Anything. What do you want? I mean, really want if none of the walls and security and rules existed. No one had ever asked her that. Her whole life had been about what she couldn't have, couldn't do, couldn't be. I want to see, she said, and felt him tense beside her. Not just with my eyes. I know that's probably impossible, even though my father won't accept it. But I want to see the way you do. Experience things directly, not through descriptions or controlled environments. I want to touch food in markets and feel rain without someone rushing me inside, and hear music played by people who don't care if they're perfect. Her grip on his hand tightened. I want to matter. To do something that helps people instead of just being this fragile thing everyone protects. You matter, Kai said fiercely. You matter to me. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither of them quite knew how to name yet. Your grandmother, Evelyn said, changing the subject before her racing heart gave her away. You talk about her a lot. Tell me about her. Kai's thumb traced circles on her hand, absent and intimate. She's tough. Raised me after my parents died when I was 7. Works 16-hour days at that flower stand. Never complains. She has this way of seeing the best in everything, even when we're eating rice for the 3rd day straight because business was slow. She sounds remarkable.
She is.
She'd like you, I think. A blind billionaire's daughter? I doubt we have much in common with someone who works a market stand. You'd be surprised. Kai shifted closer, and Evelyn could feel the warmth of him, smell the sunshine that always clung to his skin. She says the richest people she knows don't have any money. They're rich in things that matter, love, purpose, joy. By that measure, you're pretty wealthy yourself. I've only known you 6 days. Long enough to sneak past your father's security 6 times. Long enough to hold my hand like it's the most natural thing in the world. His voice dropped lower. Long enough for me to start thinking about you every minute you're not here. Evelyn's breath caught. Her whole life, she'd been told she was fragile, different, set apart. But Kai made her feel powerful.
Seen.
Wanted for who she was, not despite her blindness, but inclusive of all of her. Kai, there's something I need to tell you, he interrupted, suddenly tense. About why I keep coming back, even though it's risky. Because I asked you to? It started that way. But now, he broke off as footsteps approached from the direction of the main house. Not Thomas's measured stride. These were faster, harder. Her father's footsteps. He's early, Evelyn whispered, panic flooding through her. He never comes to the garden. He's supposed to be in meetings until 6. The wall, Kai said urgently, already standing. I can make it if, Evelyn. Richard's voice cut across the garden, sharp and commanding. Step away from whoever that is. Security. Kai's hand slipped from hers, and Evelyn heard him move, but not toward the wall. Toward her father. Sir, I can explain. You're on my property near my daughter. Richard's voice was ice and fury. You'll explain to the police. And Evelyn realized with sinking dread that their secret was over.
Wait.
Are you yet to subscribe up till now? Do so now. Subscribe and like this video. Thank you for doing so, and also drop a comment to share your opinion.
Thank you.
Let's continue. Evelyn stood between them, her hands trembling but her voice steady. No police, she said. Father, this is Kai. He's my friend. Friend. Richard's voice dripped disbelief. Evelyn, you don't know anything about this person. He's been trespassing, manipulating you. He's been talking to me. That's all. Treating me like a human being instead of a breakable doll. She heard her father's sharp intake of breath, heard security guards approaching at a run, heard Kai's quiet, defeated exhale beside her. Evelyn, go to the house. Now. Richard's command voice, the one that moved markets and terrified board members.
No.
The single word seemed to stop time. Evelyn had never refused her father directly. Not like this. Not in front of witnesses. What did you say? I said no. Evelyn's whole body shook, but she stepped closer to where Kai stood. I'm 18 years old. I'm not a child. And I'm not leaving while you have him arrested for the crime of being kind to me. Kind? Richard's laugh was harsh. Evelyn, you can't possibly be this naive. This boy has a name.
Kate.
Use it. Thomas and 2 other guards arrived, slightly out of breath. Evelyn heard them flanking Kai, heard the subtle shift of his weight as he prepared to be restrained. Sir, Thomas said quietly, should we wait? Richard's voice had changed, become controlled again. Calculating. Kai, is it? How much? Silence. Then Kai, confused. How much what? How much money do you want to disappear? To stay away from my daughter? 10,000? 20. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Father, you can't just... I don't want her money, Kai said, and his voice was tight with controlled anger. I'm not here because of her money. Everyone wants money, Richard said flatly. Especially people from your circumstances. Thomas ran your background the moment our cameras caught you. Kai Thornton, 19, South Market District. Grandmother with medical debt. No steady employment. History of what? Kai's voice rose. Taking odd jobs to help my grandmother survive? Yeah, guilty. But I never asked Evelyn for anything. I brought her mangoes and stones and music, not invoices. You brought yourself onto private property to access a vulnerable young woman. I'm not vulnerable. Evelyn's shout surprised everyone, including herself.
I'm capable. I'm smart.
I navigate this entire estate without help. I read faster than most sighted people using audiobooks and Braille. I've taught myself 3 languages because I was bored with my tutors. But none of that matters to you because all you see is my blindness. All I see is what I've lost, Richard said quietly, and something in his voice cracked. Every time I look at you, Evelyn, you have your mother's voice, her determination, her stubbornness. And you have the disability that every doctor said could be treated if we'd caught it early enough, if we'd known before you were born, if she'd agreed to the treatments. Evelyn went absolutely still. What treatments? The garden fell silent except for the fountain's endless trickle. Father, what treatments? Nothing, Richard said quickly. I misspoke. You never misspeak. You're pathologically precise. Evelyn's mind raced, pieces clicking together. There was a treatment. When I was born, you said the blindness was irreversible, genetic, impossible to fix. It is complicated. Uncomplicated. She heard her father move, pacing the way he did when cornered in negotiations. The treatment existed. Exists. Gene therapy, experimental then, FDA approved now. It had to be done within the first 6 months of life for maximum effectiveness. Evelyn's legs felt weak. And your mother wanted to do it. Insisted. But the risks, there was a 3% chance of complications, brain damage, death. 3%. I couldn't. After losing her in childbirth, I couldn't risk losing you too. So you chose, Evelyn said slowly, each word carefully controlled around the rage building in her chest. You chose to keep me blind and safe rather than risk giving me sight. I chose to keep you alive. No, you chose to keep me under your control. The words exploded out of her. A blind daughter needs you. A sighted daughter might have left, might have had her own life, might not have been yours to protect and control and keep locked away. That's not, Evelyn, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her hands clenched at her sides. What about now? The treatment. You said it's FDA approved now. Can it still work? Silence. Father. Can it still work? The window of maximum effectiveness is past, Richard said carefully. But Dr. Morrison mentioned at your last checkup that there's a new protocol. Adult applications. Success rates around 60%. But the risks are mine to take. Evelyn's voice was steel. My eyes. My life. My choice. You're not thinking clearly. This boy has confused you, filled your head with hope. Kai spoke up for the first time in minutes. Yeah, I did. Because she deserves it. And for the record, Mr. Ashford, I didn't know about any treatments. I didn't know anything except that she was lonely and brilliant and trapped. I came back every day because she asked me to and because she's... He paused, then continued quietly. Because she's extraordinary. Evelyn turned toward his voice, her heart hammering. Evelyn, her father said, his voice heavy with that familiar guilt-laden pain. Everything I've done has been to protect you. I know. And she did. That was the terrible part. He loved her completely and suffocatingly. But protection without freedom isn't love, Father. It's prison. And I'm done being an inmate. What are you saying? Evelyn took a breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her. I'm saying I want the treatment. I want to try. And I want to make my own choices about my medical care, about who I spend time with, about my life. And if I say no, then I'll wait 4 months until I turn 19 and legally control my inheritance from Mother's trust. And I'll leave. The words came out calmer than she felt. Is that what you want? To lose me completely because you won't let me have anything? She heard her father's breathing, ragged and pained, heard the guard's uncomfortable shuffling, heard Kai's quiet presence beside her like an anchor. I can't lose you, Richard finally said. You're all I have left of her. You won't lose me. Evelyn's voice softened slightly. But you have to let me be more than a memorial to Mother. I have to be myself. The silence stretched long enough that Evelyn wondered if she'd broken something irreparable between them. I need time, Richard said finally.
To think about this.
All of this. Okay. But he leaves.
Now.
Off the property. Evelyn wanted to argue, but Kai's hand found hers briefly, squeezed once. It's okay, he murmured. I'll go. The east wall gets properly repaired today, Richard continued. And Evelyn, you're restricted to the house until we discuss this further. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't total defeat either. Evelyn nodded once and let Kai's hand slip from hers as security escorted him away. She heard him go, heard the gate close behind him, and felt the walls settle back around her. But something had changed. She'd spoken her truth, named her prison, demanded her freedom. And somewhere in the city beyond these walls, Kai existed, thinking about her. For now, that was enough to keep fighting. 3 weeks passed in absolute silence. Evelyn sat in her room on the estate's third floor, a location she'd occupied for 18 years, but which now felt like a cell. Her father had made good on his threat. The east wall was repaired, reinforced, lined with additional cameras. Her garden privileges were revoked. Even her walks through the estate's interior were now supervised by Mrs. Chun or Thomas, always within arm's reach, treating her like she might shatter at any moment. She'd fought at first, demanded conversations with her father, insisted on her right to the treatment, to her own choices. Richard avoided her. He left for the office before she woke and returned after she'd gone to bed. Communication came through staff, polite, clinical updates about his schedule, his consideration of her requests, his need for more time. It was a strategy, Evelyn realized. Wear her down through isolation until she became compliant again. Manageable. Safe. It was working. Miss Evelyn, Mrs. Chun said from the doorway, her voice gentle. You haven't touched your lunch. Not hungry. You said that about breakfast too. And dinner last night. Evelyn didn't respond. What was the point? Food was just another thing that appeared on schedule, predetermined, controlled. Mrs. Chen's footsteps approached, and the bed dipped as she sat beside Evelyn. Your father is worried about you. My father is punishing me. He's scared. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting, Evelyn said bitterly. She'd replayed the confrontation in the garden countless times, analyzing every word, every moment. The revelation about the treatment, that her blindness might have been preventable, might still be reversible, sat in her chest like a stone. Mrs. Chun, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm helpless? Incapable of making my own decisions? Silence, long enough to be meaningful. Then, I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I also think you've never been given the chance to prove it. The honesty surprised her. Mrs. Chun had worked for the Ashfords for 12 years, always professional, always proper. Then why do you all treat me like glass? Because your father breaks when you're hurt, and he signs our paychecks. Mrs. Chen's hand covered Evelyn's briefly. But between you and me, that boy in the garden, I'm glad you had that. Even if it's over now. Over. The words settled like a weight. Evelyn hadn't heard from Kai since security escorted him out. No messages, no attempts to return, nothing. Part of her understood. Her father had probably threatened him with legal action, maybe worse. Richard Ashford had resources that could destroy someone like Kai with a single phone call. But part of her, the part that had held his hand and listened to his descriptions of the world, felt abandoned. What if I told you I don't think it's over? Evelyn said quietly. Mrs. Chun stood abruptly. Then I'd say be very careful, Miss Evelyn. Your father has taken measures. What kind of measures? But Mrs. Chun was already leaving, her footsteps quick and nervous. Evelyn sat alone in the silence, her mind racing. What measures? Increased security she already knew about. Legal threats against Kai. What else? The answer came 2 hours later when Thomas appeared at her door. Miss Evelyn, your father would like to see you in his study. Finally. 3 weeks of avoidance, and now Richard wanted to talk. Evelyn followed Thomas downstairs, her heart pounding with hope and dread in equal measure. Her father was at his desk, and she heard papers being shuffled as she entered. Sit down, Evelyn. She found the chair, settled into it, waited. I've made some decisions, Richard began, his voice carefully controlled. About your requests. I've consulted with Dr. Morrison about the treatment, reviewed the protocols, the success rates, the risks. Evelyn's breath caught. And, and I'm willing to consider it. On certain conditions. Hope flared in her chest. What conditions? First, you agree to a full psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Morrison believes your recent behavior suggests possible depression, instability brought on by, he paused delicately, external influences. You mean Kai? I mean anyone who encourages reckless thinking. The evaluation is standard protocol before major medical procedures anyway. It was a power play, Evelyn realized. Label her unstable, use it to justify continued control. But if it meant a path to the treatment, to sight, to freedom, what else? She asked. You cut all contact with Kai Thornton.
Permanently.
I haven't had contact with him in 3 weeks. I mean you agree not to seek him out. Not after the treatment, not when you turn 19, not ever. You leave him and his family alone. His family. The addition made Evelyn's stomach turn. What did you do? I made sure he understands the consequences of pursuing this relationship. His grandmother's flower stand operates on a month-to-month lease in a building I happen to own through a subsidiary. Her medical debt is held by a hospital group I sit on the board of. I've made it very clear that his choices affect more than just himself. Rage, hot and pure, flooded through Evelyn. You threatened her? An old woman trying to survive. I protected my daughter from someone who saw an opportunity. He didn't want anything from me. Everyone wants something, Evelyn. And I offered him a deal, $50,000 and guaranteed security for his grandmother in exchange for staying away from you. Do you know what he did? Evelyn's hands clenched in her lap. He took the money, Richard said quietly. Signed a non-contact agreement. Took the check and left. Whatever you thought you had with him, it's over. He made his choice. The words hit like physical blows. Kai took money to leave her. Signed papers. Made it legal, permanent, real. You're lying, she whispered. I have the signed contract if you'd like Thomas to read it to you. Dated 1 week ago. Kai Thornton agreed to accept financial compensation in exchange for ceasing all contact with Evelyn Ashford. His signature is notarized. Evelyn couldn't breathe. The room spun despite her blindness, her whole world tilting sideways. It made sense. Kai was poor, desperate to help his grandmother. $50,000 was life-changing money. And she was just a girl he'd known for 6 days, a billionaire's daughter who lived in a different universe. Of course he took the money. Of course he left. So here's my offer, Richard continued. You agree to the evaluation and the no-contact terms. In exchange, we schedule the treatment. You get your chance at sight, at the independence you want. But you do it without him. Evelyn sat frozen, feeling the walls close and tighter than ever before. Freedom in exchange for losing the person who'd shown her what freedom meant. Sight purchased with the price of never seeing Kai again. I need time, she managed. You have 24 hours. Then the offer expires. She stood on shaking legs, found her way to the door. Evelyn. Her father called after her.
I
know you think I'm the villain in this story, but someday you'll understand. I'm the only one who's never left you, who never will. Evelyn walked back to her room, climbed into bed, and for the first time in 3 weeks, let herself cry. Because her father was right. Everyone left. Even Kai.
Wait.
If you have listened up till now and have not subscribed, do so now. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's continue. Evelyn woke at 3 in the morning with absolute clarity. Something was wrong with her father's story. She sat up in bed, her mind racing through the conversation, picking apart the details. Richard had said Kai signed the agreement 1 week ago. But if that were true, why wait until now to tell her? Why let her sit in isolated misery for 3 weeks when he could have ended her resistance immediately by revealing Kai's betrayal? Unless it wasn't a betrayal. Unless her father was lying. The thought should have seemed impossible. Richard Ashford was many things, controlling, overprotective, suffocating, but he never outright lied to her before. Except he had, she realized, by omission, about the treatment that could have prevented her blindness, about the current treatment that could restore her sight. He'd hidden truth behind careful words and selective information for 18 years. Why not lie now, when the stakes were his absolute control over her life? Evelyn threw off her covers and moved through her room with the confidence Kai had helped her build. She didn't need light, didn't need to trail her hands along walls. She knew exactly where everything was, could navigate by memory and sound and the air pressure changes that marked doorways and furniture. Her laptop sat on her desk, programmed with screen reading software that translated text to speech. She opened it, hands flying across the keyboard with practice speed. If her father had really paid Kai off, there would be a record. Richard Ashford documented everything. Bank transfers, legal agreements, contracts. His life ran on paper trails and digital receipts. She'd never tried to access his files before. Never had reason to. But she'd been present for countless video calls with his assistant, had memorized passwords he typed within her hearing, had absorbed more about his business operations than he realized simply by existing in the same house. It took her 40 minutes to crack into his personal email account. Another 20 to find the correspondence with his lawyers about the Thornton situation. And there it was. A contract, drafted and ready, offering Kai Thornton $50,000 in exchange for ceasing contact with Evelyn Ashford. Drafted, ready,
And signed.
The email chain showed her father's lawyers sending the contract to an address in South Market. Then a response 3 days ago from a free email account. Mr. Ashford, I received your contract. I'm not signing it. You can't buy me away from Evelyn, and threatening my grandmother shows exactly why she needs someone in her life who isn't you. I'll respect Evelyn's choices if she tells me herself she doesn't want to see me. But I won't take your money, and I won't disappear because you're afraid of losing control.
Kay Thornton.
Evelyn read it 3 times, her screen reader's mechanical voice turning Kai's words into the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. He didn't take the money. He didn't leave. Her father had lied. The rage that flooded through her was cleaner than anything she'd felt before. Not the messy, confused anger of their confrontation in the garden, but a clear, cold fury that sharpened her thinking instead of clouding it. She kept searching through the emails and found something else. Recent correspondence with South Market Property Management about terminating the lease for stall number 47. Her father had followed through on his threat anyway, despite Kai refusing the deal. The eviction notice was dated for tomorrow. Evelyn checked the time. 3:47 in the morning. She had hours before the household woke, before her father's ultimatum deadline, before everything her father had carefully constructed closed around her permanently. She opened a new browser window and searched for the one person who'd ever helped her without asking permission first. It took 3 tries to find a working number for South Market flower vendors and another 10 minutes of navigating automated systems before a sleepy voice answered. Pearl's flowers were closed. Is this?
Kis grandmother.
Evelyn interrupted, her heart pounding. Silence. Then, cautiously, who's asking? My name is Evelyn Ashford. I need to speak with Kai.
Please.
It's urgent. Another pause, longer this time. You're the girl. The one my grandson talks about when he thinks I'm not listening. Despite everything, Evelyn smiled.
Probably.
Is he there? He's sleeping. Works double shifts now, trying to make up for her. She stopped abruptly. For the money my father's costing you. I know. I just found out what he's been doing, and I'm going to fix it. But I need Kai's help. Why should I trust you? You're an Ashford. Because Kai does, Evelyn said simply. And because I'm trying to be someone worthy of that trust. Movement on the other end of the line, muffled conversation. Then a different voice, rough with sleep, but unmistakably Kai's. Evelyn. Hearing him again after 3 weeks broke something open in her chest.
Kate.
I need you to listen very carefully. My father lied about the contract, about you taking money. I found the emails. I know you said no. Of course I said no. He sounded confused, more awake now. Did you think Evelyn, I thought you knew. I thought that's why you stopped trying to contact me. I've been locked in the house for 3 weeks. No phone, no computer access except supervised homework time. I had no way to reach you.
Kay swore softly.
That bastard. He's been evicting us tomorrow. Says it's unrelated to you, but we both know. I'm going to stop it. All of it. But I need your help. Anything. Name it. Evelyn took a breath, the plan forming even as she spoke it. Can you get to the estate? There's a service entrance on the south side. The code is 4729*. It's not monitored between shift changes, which happens at 5:30 a.m. You'd have about 10 minutes. You want me to break in? Again? I want you to help me break out. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully. Evelyn, what are you planning? I'm planning to make my own choices.
Starting now.
My father gave me an ultimatum, agree to his terms, or lose the treatment, lose everything. But he built his ultimatum on lies. So I'm not playing by his rules anymore. What do you need me to do? Get me to South Market. To your grandmother's stand. I need to see what my father's trying to destroy. And then, she paused, her heart hammering with fear and exhilaration. And then I need you to help me find Dr. Morrison. I'm getting that treatment, but on my terms, not my father's. Evelyn, if we do this, there's no going back. Your father will. Will what? Cut me off. I have my mother's trust fund in 4 months.
Disown me?
I'd rather be disowned and free than imprisoned and wealthy. Kai, for 3 weeks I've been dying in this house. You showed me what living feels like. I'm not giving that up. Not for him. Not for anyone. She heard him take a breath, heard the smile in his voice when he spoke. 5:30. South entrance. I'll be there. Kai, she stopped, overwhelmed by everything she wanted to say. Thank you. I missed you. You make me brave. Don't be late. Wouldn't dream of it.
He paused.
Evelyn, I'm proud of you. The words settled into her chest, warm and solid. Her father had never said that, had never seen her as someone to be proud of, only someone to protect. See you soon, she whispered and ended the call. She had 90 minutes to pack a bag, leave a note, and walk away from the only life she'd ever known. Evelyn moved through her room, selecting clothes by touch, grabbing her identification and the emergency credit card her father didn't know she knew about. She opened her laptop one more time and composed an email to Richard Ashford, scheduled to send at 6 a.m. Father, I love you, but I won't be controlled anymore. I'm choosing my own life, starting today. Don't look for me. When I'm ready, I'll come back, but it will be as myself. not as your prisoner. Evelyn. She hit schedule, closed the laptop, and shouldered her bag. At 5:28, she made her way through the silent house to the south entrance, counting steps, trailing fingers along familiar walls one last time. At 5:32, the door opened quietly, and Kai's hand found hers in the darkness. "Ready," he whispered. Evelyn squeezed his hand, stepped across the threshold, and smiled. "I've been ready my whole life." South Market at dawn was everything Kai had described and nothing Evelyn could have imagined. The noise hit her first, a wall of sound that would have terrified her 3 weeks ago. Vendors shouting prices in 6 different languages. The clatter of crates being unloaded. Music bleeding from a dozen different stalls, competing and somehow harmonizing. The sizzle of street food, the rumble of delivery trucks, the chaotic symphony of 1,000 people starting their day. Evelyn stood in the center of it, gripping Kai's hand, and smiled. "Too much?" he asked, concerned. "It's perfect." He led her through the crowd, calling out greetings to people who clearly knew him. She felt their curious stares, heard whispered speculation about who the girl in expensive clothes was, but no one treated her like glass. They simply made room, called warnings about obstacles, moved on with their lives. "Okay." An elderly woman's voice, warm and sharp at once. "You brought her." "Grandmother, this is Evelyn." "Evelyn, this is Pearl Thornton, the woman who raised me and makes the best jasmine tea in the city." "Mrs. Thornton," Evelyn said, extending her hand. Pearl's hand, small and work-roughened, gripped hers firmly. "So you're the reason my grandson's been walking around like a lovesick puppy."
Come. Seek.
"We have much to discuss before your father's lawyers arrive to throw us out." They settled behind the flower stand, and Pearl pressed a cup of tea into Evelyn's hands. The scent was similar to the jasmine garden but wilder, more alive. "They're not throwing you out," Evelyn said firmly. "I'm going to stop the eviction." "And how will you do that, child?" "Your father owns the building." "Through a subsidiary, Sterling Properties, LLC. But what he doesn't know is that my mother's trust fund, which I can access for educational and medical expenses starting at age 18, is substantial enough to buy the building outright." Evelyn set down her tea. "I had my mother's trust lawyer on the phone an hour ago. The paperwork is being filed now." Silence. Then Pearl laughed, delighted and surprised. "You're buying the building?" "I'm buying the building and establishing a foundation to provide low-cost commercial space for small vendors in South Market. My father uses his money to control people. I'm going to use mine to free them." "Evelyn," Kai said quietly, "that's your entire trust fund." "It's my mother's legacy. She would have loved this, I know she would have. My father said I have her determination. Time to prove it." Pearl's hand covered Evelyn's. "Your mother would be very proud. As am I, and I just met you." The moment was interrupted by the screech of expensive tires. Car doors slamming. Footsteps approaching fast and furious. "Evelyn," her father's voice, ragged with panic and fury. She stood, turning toward the sound. "Hello, father." Richard Ashford appeared with Thomas and what sounded like half his security team. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea what you've put me through? I've had 50 people searching for you. I thought you'd been kidnapped. I left you a note. A note saying you were leaving. Not where, not with whom." He stopped, seeming to register their surroundings for the first time. "You're in South Market. With him. After everything I told you. After all the lies you told me." Evelyn corrected. "I know Kai didn't take your money, father. I read the emails. I know he refused. I know you threatened his grandmother anyway. And I know you've been manipulating me my entire life. She heard her father's sharp intake of breath, the murmur of the growing crowd gathering to watch the spectacle. Evelyn, we need to discuss this privately. No. I'm done with private discussions where you control every word. We're doing this here, now. She stepped forward, her voice carrying across the market. You told me the treatment to restore my sight was too risky, that you were protecting me, but the real risk was that I might not need you anymore, that I might see the world clearly and realize how small you've kept mine. That's not fair. You lied about Kai taking money. You threatened an innocent woman. You've controlled every aspect of my life and called it love. Evelyn's voice cracked but didn't break. I know you're scared. I know losing Mother broke something in you. But I'm not her, and I'm not yours to lock away. I'm your father. It's my job to protect you. It's your job to prepare me for the world, not hide me from it. She softened slightly. I love you, but I can't breathe in the cage you've built. Richard was silent, and Evelyn heard something she'd never heard before, her father crying. Quiet, restrained, but unmistakable. I don't know how to let you go, he whispered. You don't have to let me go. You have to let me grow. She reached out, found his arm. I'm getting the treatment, Father. With or without your blessing. I've already contacted Dr. Morrison. He's willing to do it through my trust fund if necessary. The risks are mine to take. My eyes. My choice. My life. She felt him trembling under her hand, felt the moment something shifted in him. I'll pay for it, Richard said finally. The treatment. And I'll establish a proper medical fund, not dependent on your trust. You shouldn't have to choose between your sight and your independence. Thank you. But I want to be there, through the whole process. As your father, not your warden. If you'll let me. Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her own face now. I'd like that. Richard pulled her into a hug, tight and desperate. I'm sorry, he whispered against her hair. I'm so sorry. Your mother would be furious with me. She'd forgive you. Eventually. So will I. When they pulled apart, Richard seemed to notice Kai for the first time, really see him beyond the threat he represented. You care about my daughter. Yes, sir, Kai said steadily.
I do.
And you didn't take the money. No, sir. Though I won't lie, 50,000 would have changed our lives. But not as much as knowing Evelyn would have changed them for the wrong reasons. Richard studied him for a long moment. I'm buying this building, deeding it to Mrs. Thornton outright. Consider it an apology for threatening a woman who did nothing wrong except raise a son with integrity. Pearl made a small sound of shock. Kai's hand found Evelyn's, squeezed tight. Father, you don't have to. I do. I threatened her to control you. That's unforgivable. Richard turned to Pearl.
Mom, I'm deeply sorry.
The building is yours, no strings attached. You have my word. Well, Pearl said after a moment, I suppose some billionaires have manners after all. Despite everything, Evelyn laughed. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse. The drama concluded. Richard's security team stood awkwardly at the edges, unsure whether they were still needed. So, what happens now? Richard asked quietly. Now I come home, Evelyn said. We schedule the treatment, and we figure out how to be family in a way that doesn't require walls. And him. Richard nodded toward Kai. Kai is part of my life.
Non negotiable.
Richard sighed, but nodded. Then I suppose I should get to know him,
Properly.
without lawyers or threats. As they prepared to leave, Kai pulled Evelyn aside, his hand gentle on her arm. You are incredible, he murmured. I learned from the best. You showed me how to be brave.
No.
You are always brave. I just helped you see it.
He paused.
Evelyn, when you get your sight back, when you can finally see, the first thing I want to see is you, she interrupted. Your face. The way you smile when you talk about the market. Everything. He kissed her then, gentle and sweet and full of promise. Around them, the market continued its chaotic symphony, life moving forward like it always did. But for Evelyn, everything had changed. She'd found her voice, her strength, her sight was coming. And she'd found love in the last place her father ever expected, in the hands of a poor boy who saw her clearly long before she could see herself. 6 months later, Evelyn opened her eyes to color for the first time in her life. The treatment had taken 3 procedures, countless hours of recovery, and more courage than she'd known she possessed. Dr. Morrison had warned her that sight after a lifetime of blindness would be overwhelming, disorienting, nothing like she imagined. He was wrong. It was better. The first thing she saw was Kai's face, exactly as she'd requested. He sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, and when her eyes finally focused, she gasped. Hi, he said softly, his voice matching the face she'd built in her imagination, but somehow more real, more beautiful, more him. You have freckles, she whispered, reaching up to touch his cheek. You never mention freckles. He laughed, tears streaming down his face. Didn't seem important. Everything about you is important. Her father stood in the doorway, giving them space, but present like he'd promised. Their relationship was still healing, still learning new patterns without walls and control. But he was trying, attending therapy, listening more than he spoke, letting Evelyn make decisions even when they terrified him. It was enough. It was a beginning. How do you feel? Richard asked, stepping closer. Evelyn looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the grief and love and fear that had driven 18 years of mistakes. Saw the man behind the control, the father who'd lost his way trying to protect what he couldn't afford to lose. I feel free, she said, and grateful. Thank you for trusting me, Father. His smile was watery but genuine. Thank you for not giving up on me. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Evelyn saw the jasmine garden where she'd first heard Kai's footsteps, saw the estate that had been her prison and sanctuary. She saw South Market in all its chaotic glory, the colors, the faces, Pearl's flower stand bursting with blooms. She saw her mother's photograph for the first time and cried, recognizing her own features reflected back. But more than seeing, she was living. The Sterling Foundation, funded by her mother's trust and her father's guilty conscience, had purchased 3 buildings in South Market, providing affordable commercial space to 67 small vendors. Evelyn ran it herself, learning business from her father while carving her own path. She and Kai navigated their relationship in full view now, no more secrets or stolen moments. He taught her to see the world he'd always described. She showed him that wealth could be a tool for change instead of control. They fought sometimes about small things and large, but they never lied, never manipulated, never tried to cage each other. On a Tuesday morning in spring, Kai brought her to the place where he'd first stumbled through the broken wall. It's repaired now, Evelyn said, running her hand along the smooth stone.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, what if we broke it again? Officially this time. He pulled out a blueprint, spreading it on the ground.
A gate.
Right here, between the estate and the city. Open access to part of the gardens for the public. Your father's lawyers already approved it. Evelyn stared at the plans, her heart swelling. A gate where there had been a wall. Access where there had been isolation. Everything she'd fought for, made real. When do we start? She asked. Whenever you're ready. She looked at Kai, his freckles, his smile, his eyes that had seen her clearly when she couldn't see at all. Looked at the wall that had defined her childhood and the gate that would define her future. I'm ready, she said. I've been ready my whole life. He kissed her there, against the wall that had brought them together, under a sky she could finally see. Evelyn Ashford had been born blind into a gilded cage, but a poor boy with kind hands and an open heart had shown her how to see what truly mattered. And now, with her eyes open and her future unwritten, she was finally completely free. So, what did you think of Evelyn and Kai's journey? Have you ever had to fight for your own freedom against someone who loved you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, subscribe for more tales of love, courage, and transformation. Sometimes the greatest sight comes not from our eyes, but from our hearts. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe, like, and drop a comment telling us your location. Until next time, keep fighting for your freedom and never let anyone dim your light. Juliet's story loves you.